wondering why I've called for you. The Coden ignore our voices. They cannot speak to Ox, Eagle, or Wolverine. But Bram can.
Why me?
You are a Norn of prophecy, but you are not yet true Norn. Take the Lost Spirit's power. Use it against Drakkar. Only then will you find a place for my spirit within your own.
Hi Tyria, happy Friday and welcome to Guild Chat. I'm your host Ruby and we're going to spend some time today talking about episode 2. Quick spoiler warning, as always, the episode is out. It's been a few days. We're going to be talking about everything today. So the spoiler gates are open. You guys get to talk about everything. If you haven't played through everything yet and you don't want spoilers, watch it later after you've played.
Do we get to, so is that just so that I don't yell spoiler alert and then the big alarm blares?
Too late, it just happened.
Oh.
You can say spoiler alert if you want to.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's too late. The moment has passed. So we're going to talk about episode 2, maybe talk about a few things that we have coming up soon, give a few hints, show a few things. If you guys have questions for any of our dev guests today, put them in chat. We will take as many as we have time for at the end of each segment. So let's jump right in with our first 2 dev guests. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, talk about what you do here at ArenaNet for our newcomers, and what you worked on for episode 2.
Cool. I'm Alex Kane. I'm a senior writer and narrative designer here at ArenaNet. I wrote all the words in episode 2.
You make it sound like such a small thing, like no big deal. Or literally every
Do you know
word.
how many words that we ended up being?
I need a number.
They asked us, God. The problem is that I have 2 numbers. I have the VO count and I have the 4. We wrote 4. There are 4 words. Is that supposed to be 4? Is that supposed to be 4?
Connor's just like, let's see if he rolls with it.
4 words. They're only 4 words. They're good ones.
A lot of reuse.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What he means is 4 languages, and you wrote the words in all those languages.
I think it's more than 4 languages. I don't know.
Okay. That was fun.
That was fun.
Stop
That was a good bit. We're done.
Stop messing with him.
It's our segment.
Cameron. Hi.
Hi, I'm Cameron Rich. I'm a game designer, and for this episode, I kind of helped out around the place and then worked primarily on Drakkar, the world boss.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't we jump right on in and talk about, so you wrote all the words, and then you put them in an order that made some sense.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. It's easy to just throw a bunch of stuff down, but yeah, you got to rearrange them.
All right, so where does that start with? Story breaking?
Yes. So we'd obviously had a pretty high-level view for what we wanted to do for these episodes for the Icebrood Saga, where we wanted things to go. We worked in tandem pretty closely with the episode 1 team because, as folks know now, the maps were sort of designed in tandem so that the map for episode 2 could expand the episode 1 map. So when we were talking about the story, we wanted it to feel like an extension of the episode 1 story, so that the two kind of felt like a cohesive whole. So that meant that the story beats in episode 1 and episode 2 were sort of hashed out at the same time, but because of the way our schedules work, episode 1 came together and crystallized a lot sooner than episode 2, and so we had time to sort of look and see what worked and what we felt we could improve on a little bit for episode 2. Things like spooky encounters, where we could drop those in. Things like the focus of the story, what interested us the most. We knew that we were going to go to Drakkar Lake because that was the area that we had picked, and we knew that that meant that the story had to focus on Drakkar to some degree. Obviously folding the world boss into the Golden Path, the main story, was a pretty early goal for us too. So yeah, we do it the same way we do any episode, is that we all sat down in a room and we hashed out what the story beats were and where we wanted the player to go and how many chapters there were and who the characters were going to be that we focused on. And I think we've got like a screenshot.
Yeah, can we look at the picture from the story breaking session?
Yeah, so it all starts on a whiteboard that is in fact this whiteboard. And we're asking ourselves questions like, we're sort of teasing throughout the story, hey, is Bram under the influence of the Whispers? Is Bram going to turn to Jormag's side? And that's a thread that we played with Ritlock and Krisha as well. Over the course of development, the events that you focus on change, the characters that you focus on change. Ritlock and Krisha originally had a role in the main story that you did that wasn't off camera, but as different events sort of coalesced and we realized that we wanted the focus to be more on Bram and his story, we tried to flesh out Ritlock and Krisha's sort of off-screen adventure, tracking down Bangar and Bangar's army, and ultimately everyone sort of comes together for this big finale moment where you have to take on Drakkar. Bram needs to, he needs to become the Norn he was always meant to be, and finally take down Drakkar. And then there's a little twist at the end too. But we're in spoiler territory, so...
Yeah, so go nuts.
Yeah, Bangar just shoots you. He just shoots you. he just ganks you.
That honestly was a thing that I hadn't played through ahead of time. So I got the experience of having that on live and just had this moment of, hey.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of knew you were a jerk, but man, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
It was a good twist.
Yeah, it was, we knew that we wanted to, and this is one of those things that just sort of happens over the course of development. The Eye of the North was something that we'd been wanting to, find a way to get it into the episode somehow. And we weren't quite sure how to do it. We weren't sure if it was going to be an episode 1 thing, if it was going to be between episodes 1 and 2, or if it was going to be an episode 2, or if we were going to save it for future content. But ultimately, we had just sort of broken the story. And then I can't remember who it was came to me. It was like, hey, we need to go to the Eye of the North at the end of this episode. And I was like, okay, well, we will figure that out. We can do that. We need to figure out a good way to get the player to the Eye of the North. And so that sort of coalesced into this idea that, okay, we know that Bangar is going to turn on the player. We know that Bangar is going to play his hand right now. Bangar is going to steal the credit for killing Drakkar and use that to unite the Char. How can we sort of remove the commander from the equation a little bit? And so things just sort of came together where he's got Bram's bow. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly, it's got this magic imbued in it that can actually take out Jormag.
Yeah, can kill Elder Dragons.
Yeah, so it could definitely down the commander. Yeah. And so that became the impetus to have the player then get spirited away to Aurene in the Eye of the North, and that was a big sort of reveal moment for us, showing off Aurene in her Elder Dragon form, being able to talk to her, having conversations with her, learning a little bit more about her. This is like kind of a spoiler, but not really. There was a dialogue option that should have been in her dialogue tree that wasn't turned on, so I highly recommend that when we update, I think in couple of weeks, 2 weeks, can't remember.
A little bit less now.
A little bit less now. There's going to be a new dialogue option in there. It's like 2 lines, but it was a nice little piece of Aurene dialogue, sort of her talking about her relationship with the Mist, the Mists, and...
just the one Mist.
Just the one Mist. There are many Mists. The Mists.
Connor's over there going, there's 4.
Bronists.
Yeah.
It's canon now.
But yeah, like it was just one of those like fun little gifts that you get, where he's like, hey, by the way, you get to end the episode by showing off Aurene going to the Eye of the North, which is a huge opportunity, and I was really happy that we were able to sort of make good on that.
Yeah. So I have a question. You had mentioned Eye of the North, and we've got Aurene, who we've just raised from an egg at this point over literally several years. We have Drakkar, we have Drakkar Lake. This whole thing goes back, especially for longtime players, those of you that have been playing since way back in Guild Wars 1. This whole thing is like a giant nostalgia bomb. How much fun was that? And was there a certain amount of, okay, we really need to make sure we get this right?
There was a lot of that.
A lot of pressure, for sure.
Yes. Things in how we handle Drakkar, for example, is a good example. Guild Wars 1 players know what Drakkar looked like in Guild Wars 1. And we have to look at that, and if we say, okay, well, we want Drakkar to be a world boss, what does that mean? What should Drakkar be able to do?
Yeah.
And so we have those discussions, and we're looking at the design of Drakkar, and we're thinking about, okay, well, in the intervening 250 plus years after Guild Wars 1, after absorbing all of this dark Jormag magic, what does that do to a creature? How does that change a creature? This mechanic of Drakkar being able to swim through the ice and stuff like that. It's not cool if Drakkar is just locked in ice and you're fighting this thing that's stuck in solid ice. And so the design discussion sort of crystallized, no pun intended, around the idea that Drakkar could move through solid ice like it was water and re-emerge in different parts of the arena. So you'll definitely want to talk a little bit more about like the genesis of that. But I will say the way I sort of described to the team Drakkar's physical appearance shifting due to this influx of Jormag magic over the last couple of centuries is the Drakkar that you saw in Guild Wars 1 was like the original form, and then it evolves into new form, Drakkar Guild Wars 2. I was going to come up with like a Pokemon-esque name for the evolved version of Drakkar, but
honestly, I can't see chat, but I don't know how many of you have said final form.
Yeah,
I would love to know.
Well, I
was waiting for you to say it, so
it's fun to see like what happens to a creature that big whenever they have so much Jormag magic, because we've kind of shown like some pretty grotesque transformations from the Icebrood. Like there's this, the Icebrood Colossus that looks like he's like big and hulking, and if you look inside of the skull of that creature, you can see, or the face of that creature, you can see the skull of a Svanir, and so that was once a person, right? Yeah. So we've seen before that like Jormag's magic really does do crazy corruption to the things that take it in. So it was fun to be able to play with that, and also it kind of ended up solving a couple of problems that we ran into in early development. Which
do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Sure.
We can just kind of bounce around because we have a lot to talk about. So
So I guess early on we knew that we wanted Drakkar. Like you said, we kind of came up with the idea of like, hey, what if he shifted through ice? Wouldn't that be really cool? And then the art teams were like, yeah, that would be really cool. What if he didn't? And but we ended up doing it, and the team really pulled that together. We can show off some of the transformation as we get through development a little bit later on. But specifically for his form, we had this asset that was back from Guild Wars 1, where if you turned your graphic settings to a very particular state, or if you data mined the files, or if you looked very, very carefully underneath Drakkar Lake, you could see this dragon, right? And we never really explicitly said that it was Drakkar in Guild Wars 1. It was just kind of hinted at, right? And it was this, big dragonoid creature that was underneath the lake. And so, it probably is Drakkar. But that dragon, if you look at it, has some really strange appendages. And so our first conversation was like, how does this thing move? Because its arms are like these stabby, weird.
It had sort of a like a Loch Ness monster vibe going on.
Yes.
Like they're like flippers.
It totally looked like Nessie, like corrupted Nessie.
Yeah.
And So we knew like very, very early on, we're like, okay, we would love to be able to take this model and make an entirely new rig for it and figure out how to animate that and make it look really good. But we're on a budget. We need to, keep scope as in line as possible.
Yeah,
Sure.
and we were working on Aurene at the same time, too.
Yeah.
So that became sort of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, definitely. And so we had that idea of like, hey, we're working on Aurene. She's got this new rig, and what if we put Drakkar on that same rig? How would that transform him? And that ultimately ended up leading into some fun shenanigans, which we'll show off in a little bit.
The best kind of shenanigans.
Yes. But it was fun seeing him evolve over time. Definitely, like the art team in particular did a lot of research and development on how they were going to get him to look the way that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He came out super creepy.
Mhm.
I hadn't thought too much about what do those flippers, what exactly are those? So,
For swimming, pretty great.
yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. But now that the whole lake is frozen and it's solid ice,
Drakkar's
maybe
just
not.
hanging out like whelp.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yep.
What do we do?
So yeah, it became sort of a cool. The design obviously led to a lot of the cool sort of envisioning what the attacks might be like
Mhm.
and how that affects the course of the fight.
Yeah, we definitely knew that we wanted to have a world boss that felt like it was more of a creature and less of like a set dressing that you fought its toe. Which I know that you still slap its hand with your sword, like that's how you primarily do damage. But we really wanted to make sure that it felt like he was moving around the arena a lot, which a lot of our world bosses feel very static. And that shifting through ice really allowed us to like play with how we were able to make that work mechanically.
Also, shout out to Kimberly Brooks,
Yes.
who voiced Javi in this episode. She did phenomenal work. When I get a first pass script from Cameron for Drakkar, and it's just like, hey, these are all the things that we're going to have a character react to or need to tell the player. And it's, for a world boss, in particular this one, it was a massive list of all these different states that the boss could be in and all the different phases and everything. And Kimberly had to really sell it all the time. And we were giving her, all this fun direction, which is like, you've created a shield bubble and Drakkar's like, it's like you're benching 10,000 pounds. Tell us, now you have to tell us to go for the claws. Go for the claws.
Yeah.
And she nailed it. She was great.
So Kimberly's fantastic. She is really, really good. But she's not our only amazing voice actor. And you oversaw the voice acting with Tom, Armand, and Marissa, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We all went down
Yeah.
for a recording session, as we do for every episode down in Burbank, and it was phenomenal. We had, our actors for Guild Wars, like it's crazy when you really think about it. It's like how many games do you have? Nolan North, Sam Riegel, Matt Mercer, Kimberly Brooks, Jennifer Hale, Tommy Earl Jenkins. Yeah, like all these amazing actors. Tommy Earl Jenkins, by the way, Di Hardman himself voiced Cloudseeker and the Wolverine Spirit. A phenomenal performance from both of those.
And then Deborah as well.
Deborah Wilson,
Yeah.
Jormag, gave a wonderful Jormag performance. Actually, there is a really cool, I'm going to segue a little bit into the topic of spoops.
Yeah, you got to say it.
I got to say it. So yeah, one of the things in episode 1 that we really, really liked was this idea of sort of systemic spooky times, where there would be periodic whispers and you would hear things, and it was sort of simulating the idea that Jormag was really in control of this region, and nobody could really be trusted, and nobody was thinking for themselves.
I have been meaning to tell you this and forgot until you just said that, but I was playing with one of my guildmates. I was running him through the story, and he got to a whisper and stopped, and we were on Discord, and he was like, did you hear that? And of course, because I'm a complete jerk, I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, it's player specific, which is a brilliant part of the design too, I think.
Because like in an MMO space where you have tons and tons of people around, how do you make someone feel on edge or like uneasy, right?
How indeed.
Yeah. How do you make someone feel isolated in a space where they've got, a group of people around them? A space where, a bunch of people are running and hopping around, but then you've got this little voice in the back of your head that's whispering very strange things to you. So the audio team did a fantastic bit of work with... So Deborah Wilson, who is the voice of Jormag in this episode and in all previous episodes, did this monologue for me. And I wrote, it's like a 2-page monologue that is actually on kind of a loop. And you only hear it at certain parts of the map at certain times in certain situations. And it's very, very quiet. And it's very strange. It's a very fun little thing to just sort of be running around the map, and then you hear what definitely sounds like a voice speaking to you, but you're not quite sure what it is, and you're not quite sure why it's getting softer or louder at any given point.
Does it log to chat?
It does not log to chat.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That makes it even
terrifying.
spookier.
Yep. So, yeah, maybe it's a problem with your headset. I don't know. But, Deborah Wilson did a fantastic job in this episode. Really, everyone did a fantastic job in this episode. Sam Riegel, obviously, as Bram, had a pretty big role in this episode as well.
He's so much fun.
Yes, and Ike Amadi did a wonderful turn as the Wolf Spirit, which was a lot of fun. And we love working with all these folks. And of course, Graham McTavish as Bangar at the very end, very small role, but still. Just steals the show, chews the scenery.
Yes.
And Nika as Aureen.
Nika Futterman is fantastic.
Yeah.
She is so good, and I'm so glad we have her.
She did.
Getting to work with her is great.
So one of the things that happens when we bring people in is we ask them to play a couple of different roles because we have all these open world roles as well.
Yeah.
And we ask them to sort of switch up the character a little bit, maybe play a different race. And for Nika, she came in and she did Aureen, and it was phenomenal. And we were like, okay, so now we need you to change it up a little bit. We need you to do an Asura for this trio of Vigil soldiers that wander around the map and have all this fun little banter between themselves. And she's like, oh, I've never done an Asura. We're like, there's no way that's possible. She must have done an Asura at some point. And then we realized, no, she never had. So she came up with this voice that sounded like I can't remember her name, but the secretary from Ghostbusters. It was perfect. It was a perfect voice for the dialogue that she had.
Oh man!
And yeah, I highly recommend if you're exploring the map and you find this trio of Vigil soldiers with a Sylvari, a Norn, and an Asura wandering around the map. If you stick around them, you'll hear some fun dialogue. But yeah, the voice actors.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, the voice actors in this episode just blew me away. Like being in there. They're all pros. I mean, every single one of them. It was great.
Is that trio also affected by Jormag at any point?
No, but they talk about Jormag a lot. One of the things, so like when I do sort of open world dialogue, the very first thing I usually think of is what are some questions that players might have if they were actually in the open world. And our player base is very savvy about the lore. Like they know things that some of these characters might not know, or some characters might know and others won't. And so the idea of this trio was that, okay, here's a character who's totally up to speed on the lore. Here's a character that's totally new to the lore. And here's a character who's kind of ambivalent about the lore. What happens when you put all three of them in a group together and they're talking about Drakkar is like a mouthpiece for Jormag, and then the Norn's like the mouth of Mordremoth or the mouth of Zaitan. It's like, no. It's a completely different mouth.
Sit down.
Yeah.
We need to talk about this.
Yeah. So those are fun conversations to write. Yeah.
Yeah. The spooky scenes around the map, the whispers are a huge part of that. And there was actually a line that I called out to you a week or two ago.
Yes.
After one of our playthroughs, that something, and it speaks a lot to what Jormag is and what Jormag does. And you might have to help me with the line, because now I just remember and I'm just like, oh, that is scary.
Yeah. I remember because we were playing.
I freaked out at you during the playthrough. Yeah,
it was during Drakkar where Jormag says, "I have never given something to someone who didn't ask for it."
Yes, that was your line, right?
Yes.
And it's such a good look at the core of what Jormag does to you.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of different elements to it, right? Like it's. what's an unsettling thing to say to the player at this point, and then nailing the performance, and then getting the audio design right, having it show up at just the right moment.
I didn't realize that either until you told me it happens when you crest that hill.
Yeah, it's
tough because the Elder Dragons have been a primary threat for Guild Wars 2 since its inception, right? And so players know, hey, we're going to go take down all the Elder Dragons, or at least as much as we can. And now you've got one that's like, some of its lines actually make you start to consider, like, oh, wait, should I be taking down this Elder Dragon?
Yeah,
is there maybe some truth to what she's saying? They're saying?
That's absolutely part of the goal for the episode, is that Jormag is supposed to be good at convincing people to do things and to believe things. And if that's the reputation that the Elder Dragon has, how do you know when the Elder Dragon is telling the truth and is actually working in your best interests? So that's obviously an open question that we plan to explore in greater detail in future episodes. But I would say that for all the players out there who feel like maybe Jormag has some good points, or maybe we should be listening more to Jormag, maybe you should. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
It's a pretty solid stance to take at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is terrifying. Which is the point. But it's that foundation of the scare around the map, and it's so good.
And I mean, really, that stuff doesn't happen without the huge support of the design team as well, like being able to find the right places to put that stuff, being able to trigger it in just the right way.
The pacing is incredibly important.
Yeah. So I know that Connor did a phenomenal job finding just the right places to put that stuff. Jason Reynolds kicked off that whole process, and it was fantastic. When you're designing this stuff very early on, it's very difficult to get a good idea of how things are going to look at the end. We actually have a video of one of the Sin events. I can sort of set that up a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is an early sort of video showing the Bangar confrontation scene at the end. This is sort of the first pass where I give the updated script to the design team, and the designers sort of block things out with a first pass, and everything is timed out using our Robo Voice.
Yes, can we talk about the gift that is Robo Voice? I love it. You guys hate it.
I do. I hate it for many reasons that I will elaborate on after everyone has a chance to see it.
It's just so bad. It's good.
Yeah. Sorry, let's
roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
There it is.
You hear that? What? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. HRM. Where's the rest of your army? Drakkar was a threat to my soldiers. Corrupting the weak, as you now know. We couldn't take any chances. We need to debrief. But what the hell is that? Exhales. The dragon's magic, it's gone. Good work. We did what no Norn could. We drove Hormig back, and now the dragon's running scared. Hey, we've been fighting Drakkar all over this lake. You can't just swing in with my bow. Bangar, you've seen how dangerous Hormig is. You just said it yourself, you can't risk others being turned. The closer you take your people to Hormig, the higher that risk. It's a risk I'm willing to take. You're not here to protect your army. You're here to protect your reputation. Drakkar's death at my hands sends them all a message: I am Hormig's champion now. I alone can control the dragon. Hormig can't be controlled. That's not how this works. Convenient, coming from you. Ryland. Don't tell me you believe this. My Imperator gave us an order. Will you follow it? I can't let you take credit. This needs to stop. Now. I couldn't agree more. What have you done?
Hormig, Drakkar.
Drakkar. Drakkar is like my new favorite word.
Yes. So I guess a couple of things. One is that's how we get the scene before any VO goes in, before anything is timed. That scene runs about 2 minutes, and the player obviously is sort of just watching the scene unfold. Things like trimming certain lines of dialogue, you'll notice that if you sort of watch that scene and the final scene back to back, there are a couple of exchanges that are trimmed or cut, just to help with the timing and the flow of the conversation, to make sure the tension sort of builds up. There's no music, but in the final game, I think that scene runs about 1 minute and 20 seconds, and here it's about 2 minutes. So that just shows, how much time the final draft of these things can, it really makes a huge difference. Like when you look at that, you're like, man, this is terrible.
and there's such a difference whenever you finally get the voice actors in and you have the real VO going on, just like the cadence that they're actually speaking the lines, the way that they deliver them, it just changes the whole tone of the content.
Yeah, and everything is automatically spaced out with robo voice. So a character says a line, and then another character says a line, and then another character says
it's like a really weird metronome.
Yeah, and so like we haven't gone in and timed it and shifted things around. So yeah, like the whole episode comes to us like that, and obviously that's just part of the process of, okay, you've written it, now make it good. And design obviously helps a lot with that, staging everything out, blocking everything out. If characters need to look or move to certain places, they help with that too. You'll notice that the staging of the scene is completely different. The camera work is completely different in the final version of that scene. It's a lot tighter. It focuses more on the things you should be focusing on instead of having the sort of bird's eye view that you normally have. So yeah, that's just part of the making the sausage of the episode.
Yeah, implementation to final product to here's what we kick out the door.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, in all video games, they don't look great up until they start. They're looking great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's almost always at the very end.
Yes. So speaking of Drakkar.
Yeah, and also speaking about things looking kind of wonky.
Not looking great until they do.
Yeah. Yes.
I think we have some behind-the-scenes stuff from Drakkar's development.
Yes.
Let's see some. Roll the tape.
Yeah, let's look at some of the.
Roll the tape.
Let's look at some of the setup of Drakkar.
Oh, okay, cool. So
there's one that looks very much like Hungry Hungry Hippos, and I love it so much.
This one is we knew that we wanted to have Drakkar coming out of the ice. And swimming through the ice, and we had some inspiration from like Final Fantasy's like Demon Wall, where there's this creature that's looming out of like a solid surface. And so we put together this very early, just kind of like, here's kind of showing what we're thinking about, just very, very high level. And then I think the next one actually is what we ended up with. I built the first one out of just like 5 minutes of like blocking stuff in. It really shows you this here is when the artist gets in and is like, all right, I see your idea, and I'm going to make it beautiful. There's such a vast difference, and it really does come together.
The whole swimming through the ice thing was actually one of the inspirations, I think, when we were first talking about what the look of it should be, was the New England Aquarium. They have this giant tank through the center of the whole aquarium, and if the lighting hits it just right, you can see the silhouettes of the big sort of fish swimming around it. And so that was, that was...
Okay, that's extremely cool.
It was cool.
Wow. Where is that?
Aquariums. It's in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we have other?
We should.
The Hungry Hungry Hippos video.
Yes,
please.
Yes.
So this is an animation that we were given very early on. By the way, I had mentioned that we used Aurene as kind of the rig and the prototype. So a lot of what you're going to see.
That's why it's so shiny.
Is going to be Aurene doing these crazy things. Yeah. So I had this idea of like Drakkar coming out of the ice and chomping at you and then slithering back in. And our animator, Trevor, he was like, okay, yeah, I'll put something quick in for you so that you can stub it into the game, see how it feels. So he gave me this, which was just hilarious and caused the entire room to break out into raucous laughter.
I want to put some marbles in there.
And I was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do with this animation. And so... we have
this is fine.
all sorts of different places where he can come out.
You're sorry, Cameron. Okay, Cameron, we're sorry. You're trying to talk. Go ahead.
No. This take in the beauty, right? I'd put this animation in multiple different spots so we could see what Drakkar might look like coming out of the walls, coming out of the ceiling if we had that, coming out of the floor, and it became ridiculous. And a lot of us definitely saw this and was like, this is gonna look super silly.
Yeah.
But if you fought him in game,
Hello.
it's a lot scarier and a lot more tense.
It's true.
This is like basement Drakkar and ceiling
Drakkar.
Yeah.
And then I think we have a couple of other ones. Yeah, so here is
Angry Oreen.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
This was the stomp attack that we knew we wanted to have, and so we put together a very quick here's what it might look like from a timing perspective. And it really just she's dancing, she's doing some crazy things. This is what happens when you turn into an elder dragon. You got to celebrate.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it also goes to show, I mean, like, if you look at the final Oreen in Eye of the North as well, you can see what kind of just polish goes into that too after the fact. I mean, this is sort of just like, first pass of a lot of things.
Yeah. And speaking of first pass to final, here is what it looks like when Drakkar is actually using the attack.
This is stressing me out.
So you can definitely see there's a lot of kind of transformation that happens over the process, from just getting something very quick and dirty into the game to see how it looks and see how it might feel from timing, and then having an animator go in and just spend days like really polishing it up and making it look scary and menacing and not, crazy dance.
Mm-hmm.
I do like in the previous one that the player character is just standing there stoically like, yes, you look great.
I imagine that they are giving her tips and then she's practicing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then here's an animation from an attack that was ultimately cut from the final product because we couldn't find a way to just make it really look great.
I want to use this as one of those, like, I'm done with this world kind of gifts.
I don't want to be here anymore.
I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We ended up just calling this the Shamu attack.
I was going to ask you to talk about your file naming conventions.
I'm very serious about my file naming conventions. I try to be as descriptive as possible while also getting as many laughs.
Mm-hmm.
So we go from dance dance to dance dance dance
Yes.
to stompy stompy to Shamu. It's an art.
And the first two, we had chomp chomp to chomp chomp chomp.
Yes.
I was so happy when you sent me all these files. I was like, this is great.
Yeah. The
My
script.
day is made.
The script for all the scary things that can happen in the episode was spoopy times.
Yep.
.ftx. Yeah. Yeah. No, we have fun.
I love it. So that was a little bit of a look at the Drakkar fight.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to...
Oh,
Do you want
yeah.
to?
That's right.
I'm offering you a chance to give some spoilers on upcoming things.
Yeah.
Provided nobody comes running in here and stops me.
Yeah.
Well, so we announced that there were some rewards that didn't quite make it in time for the patch, for the initial launch of Shadow in the Ice, that we're going to be releasing very soon. And when Connor comes on a little bit later, he'll give you guys a little bit more of a sneak peek at what you can expect. But in addition to the rewards coming out, we've actually been really looking at the feedback of the Drakkar encounter on live. It's been a really long time since we did a world boss, and so we wanted to make sure that when we shipped it, it wasn't like super uber hard and no one could beat it, but we wanted to make sure it was something that definitely gave a challenge, and lots of tweaking and tuning went into that and continues to go into that. And so when these rewards ship, you'll definitely be getting a tuned-up version of the Drakkar encounter with some changes to a couple of things that I don't want to give too many spoilers because when it does come out, you guys can go in and see it for yourselves. But we're taking a lot of your feedback to heart and definitely trying to make it the best encounter it can be.
Awesome. All right, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them in chat while we wrap up and talk about a couple of extra things, and then we'll answer a couple of your questions before we get our next round of dev guests on. So is there anything else that you all want to touch on before we move on to Nick and Connor? You look terrified.
I'm focusing on the television screen over there.
Or if you want to start grabbing questions, you can do that too.
Yeah, no, I think so. I guess just the top one.
Okay, go ahead. So you can see these questions. The viewers cannot. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know the item that let you revisit the Tarir egg chamber and play with Baby Aurene. Could we have another one of those to visit the final instance of Shadow in the Ice? That is a wonderful idea, and obviously a lot of work went into this updated version of the Eye of the North and Aurene. And we do want to make sure that players have the opportunity to go back there, and so it's something that we are definitely considering, trying to figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, definitely. This next question for Drakkar. Given Drakkar's green and ghastly look, has it become aberrant via Wolverine magic, or is it death-touched via Zaitan magic? It's a really good question. Kind of a little bit of both. If you've played through the Drakkar encounter, you know that he siphons magic from the corrupted spirits of the wild, so he definitely does have some Wolverine magic in him. And also, Jormag got some of that Zaitan magic whenever he died, and that magic went to Mordremoth, it went to Zaitan, it went to Primordus. We saw the Death Touch destroyers. And so there's a little bit of that kind of like all wrapped together. But fun fact, if you haven't seen it yet, in the encounter, you can actually see the effects that Drakkar use for casting the magic spells in the second room. They will change color depending on which of the spirits of the wild he is channeling at the time.
Let me see. I'm not sure about, so this question about given how the Freynier fell in episode 1, does his return in the strike mission mean he was raised as death-touched Icebrood, or is that just time manipulation? I'm going to chalk that up to time manipulation, which is something that we rely upon for a lot of these encounters that are epic but don't make a whole lot of sense if you keep doing them over and over and over again. So yeah, that's more the latter than the former.
I like to think that as you're going through these encounters, you're kind of succumbing a little bit to the influence of Jormag and maybe seeing a couple of things that may not be there.
Oh God, is that cumulative?
You get XP.
I need to know.
You still get XP for the fight. So
we'll see as the saga goes on.
Is the little hint from Crack in the Ice episode returning, where we saw Jormag's minion with plant, ice, and death magic infused into one creature? Is there any hints in this episode of it?
Well, we just kind of touched on a little bit of Drakkar and how he shows that.
Yeah, the idea that the Elder Dragon, the remaining Elder Dragons, have elements of the slain Elder Dragons is definitely an element that we consider when we come up with what their minions look like or how they operate. So, yeah.
Something that's a little different with Jormag, though, is that you'll notice that not all of its minions have the whole death touch thing, and Jormag is very intelligent. So it seems that Jormag is specifically channeling the magic that it got into its most most powerful champions.
So these next two, I can really quick answer the first one. Inspiration for this episode, thriller movies. Were we inspired by any books or authors' work for the episode? I know that we talked a lot about The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
We actually ended up watching that as a team.
Yes. There was this notion of, you don't know who you can trust, you don't know who's under the influence of Jormag. The Coden Society is built around this idea that, you don't know if your voice is your own or your voice is broken and taken over by Jormag's whispers. So yeah, that was a chief inspiration, I know, for me and early on in this episode, putting it together. And the second question is pretty cool because we don't really show in progress scenes where, we have some lines that have been cut or trimmed. So a very good question is, why did we decide to cut most of these lines in the final version of the scene? I wouldn't necessarily say it's most. You'll notice that like a couple of beats are streamlined. There's Ritlock's line. You're not here to protect yourself. You're here to protect your reputation. Bangar says that's convenient coming from you. A lot of these lines are good, I think, at setting up what the characters are thinking at that specific time. But when we're playing it and we're looking at, we're sort of reading through the scene and figuring out how the pacing works, that's definitely one of those things where, you have to kill your darling sometimes. The scene was running pretty long, and we thought that we sort of got these points across in other ways. So Bangar's motives read, I think, pretty well without Ritlock having that line there. I think that Bangar saying that's convenient coming from you was basically him sort of dunking on your relationship with Aurene. How come you can have this relationship with Aurene and be Aurene's champion? I can't be Jormag's champion. What's up with that?
Yeah, why are you so special?
Yeah, I think that sort
I'm
of
the commander.
Yeah, and it's basically that him saying that spells out something that should hopefully be evident through his actions and through the other lines that he says. So when I start getting feedback that it's like, hey, the scene feels like it's going on a little too long, how can we change that? The first thing I look at is, okay, what are things we're saying twice? How can we trim that? And we do that a lot in the script. We try to find ways to make the play experience better, and that's just part of making many of these episodes.
Yeah, definitely. The question of, does Drakkar have a full body rendered model? We only see the front half and the shadow. I would say that that's kind of a mystery, but we've definitely seen some players see the back half of the model through some crazy wonky manipulation. So yes, he does have a fully rendered model, but we didn't end up animating the back half because of how we wanted him to come through the ice and really look like he was kind of floating and sticking out of it. Yeah.
That question made me picture like a big stick, like when CGI, when you see it before it's rendered and just somebody's out there just...
It's a normal pair of human legs behind the ice.
Oh, thanks, I hate it.
Yep.
And then the next question of, what did you guys draw inspiration from while making this world boss?
Why is that so awful?
I'd love to answer that, but I think later on, a little bit more in the future, we'll be talking a bit more in depth about the world boss, so stay tuned for that.
Drakkar all the time.
Yeah.
I get a Breath of the Wild feel from it, is what they said, and I'm currently playing Breath of the Wild, and it doesn't scare me nearly as much. So
you haven't run out of arrows in some of those fights.
You're not wrong. Like that's the first thing. Like I finished the fight, and I'm like running around scraping up every arrow I possibly can, going, no, please, I need these. I'm frightened. So yeah, there is that.
There's a lot of definitely like big scary creatures when you're fighting a Lionel for the first time and you are not prepared for it.
Yes.
Okay, so the fear is still coming.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, it looks like that is everything. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add?
Is Jormag actively using other dragons' magic, like Saitans, for example? Yeah, I think we answered that.
Yeah.
I think that's... Yeah, I mean, this was a fun episode to work on. I think everyone had a really good time putting everything in. We're really excited to see people experience some of the rare events, these spooky times in the episode, and talk about the story and talk about the events. And we're always looking for feedback, so please don't stop sending it. We do read it all, and we're excited to share more in future guild chats.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I will just say that I've been getting in game and trying to play with you guys as much as possible, and seeing you guys experience this stuff firsthand, completely blind, has been just a real treat. I remember going through and doing some events with some players, and then we headed back to Stillwater Speaking, and one player was like, "Everybody's dead! What's going on?" And I'm like, you found it.
Yep.
Are you just like, yeah, it's great.
By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you will. Eventually.
Eventually.
All right, thank you guys both, and I will let you all get back to work.
What? Oh. If Bram had become the wolf while he was shaving his head, would the wolf have been completely bald? Well...
See, that's why we waited.
What is that question?
Is an exceptional question. And I'll leave it to the community to decide the answer to that one.
Which one of you two put that question in chat? Connor.
Connor. It would be very funny if, he becomes the wolf and there's just like a, As you can clearly see, Connor, when Bram becomes the wolf, there's no correlation between Bram's Binotron. Okay.
And
they're just having fun with us now.
This is me not at all surprised that it was Binotron.
Yeah. Okay.
I like to think that if you slow down that scene, you might be able to see the hair growing out of his body. as he's transforming
I
into
hate
the
this.
wolf.
I'm quitting show business. I'm done. I'm out of here. All right.
Can I get a ride?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, we're not done yet. There's more to come.
Yeah, stick around for
Well, we're done with that
Connor and Nick.
question.
Yes, that question at the very least I'm done with.
We love you, Pinotron. All right. All right, welcome back. We are here with our, well, God, that's terrifying. With our very serious developer guests. So everybody put on a serious face.
The most serious.
Are you?
We've never made a joke in our lives.
Well, start now.
I can't. Now you put me on the spot and I have to come up with a joke
Be
like
funny.
in this moment.
All right.
That was great, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was fantastic.
All right, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, talk about what you do here at ArenaNet and what you worked on for episode 2.
Why you have to move with Connor? Why must we be
Hey,
together?
I didn't tell you where to sit. That was all Mark, so blame him, but you are closest to
fine.
me, so you go first.
I do care about you. Hi, I'm Nick. To whichever one of these cameras is looking at me.
This is you guys.
That's us.
One on the
Hi.
right.
I'm Nick. I'm going to just look at all of you. I am a game designer that worked on episode 2. and part of my responsibilities here are to make fun content for everybody to play, and then go,
Yay.
oh my god, that was great.
What specific fun content did you make, Nick?
Oh, thank you for asking, Connor. I'm so glad you asked.
Oh, I did not see you there.
Well, hello. I worked on the light puzzles for episode 2. I worked on all of the Trials of Coda. I worked on the Catalyst Mastery stuff, more specifically the reward chests, and some like map complete stuff like this does, and some of the spooky scenes, and or spoopy as Alex would like to say. I did that stuff. Here's Connor.
Yes. Hello, it is me, Connor. I was the team.
You're not wrong.
This is me. I was the team lead for this episode. And as far as content that I own, which meant I was helping everybody with everything a little bit. But my content that I was fully in charge of was I did the 3 shrines. So Wolverine, Ox, and Eagle. The final instance, where you face down Drakkar and then eventually meet Areen. And I also made a bunch of the spooky scenes, which I'd like to talk about in depth at some point.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we asking the Quaggan, or are we just the Quaggan?
What do you do here, Quaggan? What do we pay you for?
Literally that.
I don't know
What's
if
your
any cameras can
value?
actually get the Quaggan. Yeah.
It's okay.
The Quaggan's an intern.
Yeah, we have a
Quaggan's
third
Yeah.
guest here today.
There's a
but they're
Quaggan with a
shy.
headset.
Yeah.
Nick set that up. It's precious.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Quaggan knows the game development.
And
He
the
doesn't
Quaggan
want
will
to
be voiced by Connor
Uh,
today.
But yeah,
So
to actually quickly touch on what Connor was talking about, basically the team lead's role is to just put out fires. He was actually carrying around a fire hydrant a lot of the time,
Yeah.
which is really interesting.
a fire hydrant.
Yeah,
Yeah, it didn't help much. Like when I
really
sprayed
didn't.
on people when they're trying to solve problems, they're just covered in fire detergent.
And
But
it's like this, you've made my keyboard so slippery. How am I supposed to work?
But I like to think emotionally it was helpful, right?
Yeah.
They knew that if they ever actually caught on fire, I would be there.
Yeah, it was actually surprisingly better with episodes 1 and 2, since the map was just all ice.
Yeah.
So it's harder to
Yeah.
make fire in the ice regions, but Grothmar was pretty hard because
Oh, I
there's
got
just
this.
fire everywhere.
Oh yeah, don't even ask when we were working on what's
Metal
the
Legion
islands?
concert?
No, not the concert. Oh yeah, that had a lot of fire
That
too.
had a
Yeah, when we
lot
were
of
working on the Metal
fire.
Legion concert, just my keyboard would just sometimes burst
It
into
was
flames.
glorious.
I don't remember what the fire hydrant company is that makes those, but they were making bank that time.
Fire
I think it's the
extinguisher.
Inquest.
That one, not fire hydrant.
Oh, did you say fire hydrant?
I said fire hydrant.
I was carrying around a fire hydrant.
I was like, okay. I mean,
Anyway,
maybe you're lifting, but whatever.
Anyway,
Okay, so let's talk about the Trials of Coda, because we
Sure.
gave a little spoiler about that last week.
yes, we did.
And now we can talk about it more.
yeah,
Okay,
don't
that
know.
was awesome.
that was
No.
everything. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out what parts should I touch on first.
So now that people have gotten to play them,
Mm-hmm.
have they played out like you were hoping they would?
More so than not, thankfully. The trials are definitely something that were we want to try something new. We want to see how this works out, and a lot of the feedback has actually been really positive. There are definitely some critiques that we've gotten that are definitely valid that we want to kind of think of if we move forward with these things, how we want to kind of address that feedback, address these concerns. But I think overall, the trials are something that are really, really unique and fun. And what I really enjoyed is that my main goal was I want to see people being there's a trial up over here, quick, everybody come over here and help out with this thing. And we were actually seeing a lot of that. I just camp out on maps a lot, and I just sit there and I'm I can see all. And
We watch
sometimes
everything.
we watch
Nick is
everything.
watching you guys.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, my in-game character's name is Pretty, by the way. If you want to if you ever see me, you're like, oh, that's him. But yeah, and I see people running around doing the trials, and I think they've been well received, and I'm really happy about it.
I've been playing and come across some where people are calling them out. So yeah, it's been super fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Which trial is your favorite trial?
My favorite trial specifically?
Yeah.
God, it depends, because mechanically, I think the trial
'Cause-
with the tornado is definitely the coolest one, in my opinion. But the funniest one is the one based completely around the code and ice fishing stuff, because
Spit fish at you.
they just so I don't know if anybody ever noticed, but when you look at the worms that come out, sometimes there are projectiles that they vomit at you. I don't know if I actually talked about this during the preview, maybe not. But
No, we
like-
didn't talk about them at
okay,
all.
that's great. So
Yeah.
in reality, if you look really closely at those projectiles, they're actually vomiting fish at you. So it's they eat the fish inside the lake that the ones that we don't get to fish up, and then they just kind of give them to you in their
That's
own
such a
your
benign
special
way of putting it. They
Yeah.
give them to you.
They give them to you.
They're just trying to help.
They're just trying to help. Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
just-
Like that's my hot take is that like they're trying to help us.
And then you murdered them.
Yeah, they're like, thanks for the snacks. Here's some snacks back at you, right? And then we're all like, you're mean to me. That hit me in the face.
We had to cut the second phase of the fight where they were like, thanks for the swords. Now we're going to vomit swords at you because
Yeah.
you gave us all of them. In the...
That's just like the Mystic Forge, but backwards.
Yeah, basically. All of our inspiration comes from the Mystic Forge. Not like it itself, but like we throw everything in and whatever comes out, that's what we end up going with for all of our development.
The Mystic Forge is real.
Yes.
Zamaros is a paid employee of ArenaNet.
I mean, where do you
He's
think all that
really
gold
kind
came
of
from?
difficult to work with,
Is
I have to
that-
be honest.
Is
Like,
that where the snacks in the kitchen come from, like the endless snacks?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where else
actually.
would they come from?
We're just making things up
I don't know
now.
what you're talking about. This is all canon.
Real life canon.
Also from the Mystic Forge.
Real life fanfiction.
So the catalyst chest.
The catalyst
Or do you have
chests.
more about the trials that you
no,
want to
that's
talk
that's
about?
pretty much it. Like, there's a lot for us to cover. So
Yeah. Do you want to get into some of the behind the scenes images now, or do you want to cover
whichever
an
part. I
overview
mean, like,
first?
I think that like everything that had to be said with the catalyst
you
chest
like
was said
to-
during the preview.
Okay.
I mean, I think that like we've also gotten some good reception on the Catalyst T3 chest as well, and I'm really happy about that. Also, once again, some good feedback that we can definitely take into consideration moving forward. And I think
Basically, would you
yeah.
like your visual aids now or later?
I mean, if we want to go into them. So, disclaimer, there's no clicky thing for all of my visual aids. There's also a lot of images. So I'm gonna like just kind of allow Mark to go through them.
You can do pointy fingers
I don't
because
wanna
the
do,
aids
like-
will be up.
That's
so they won't
that's
see
a
them.
lot of pointy fingers.
You can do
I'd be
finger
like
guns.
finger gunning the entire time.
But they won't see. They just saw us do a bunch
They
of it.
just saw
so-
us doing
yeah,
a bunch of it. Like the cameras. Okay. Anyway. So yeah, we can totally go into the visual
Okay,
aids.
yeah, let's. Okay, hey, events.
Hi, events. Yeah, so we're talking about these. So this is actually one of our initial kind of layouts for the episode 2 side of the map, where we were thinking like, here are the main kind of event structures, and more so the ones based around the story that we kind of want to touch on. How do we want these things to flow through the map? So as you can see, like the ritual events where the Coden run around and they cleanse the funeral pyres or the flame pyres. Actually had a lot more originally than we actually ended up shipping with. Where Drakkar ended up pretty much the same. Same with the Ox Shrine, Eagle Shrine, and Wolverine Shrines, and we ended up adding a lot more Coden fishing events. But like,
Fishing events were
you know,
great.
yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, you did good.
They are.
But also shout out to Alina and Taylor Sutherland, Alina Chadwick and Taylor Sutherland, who also definitely tossed in the initial concepts and did a lot of the groundwork that helped make those Coden fishing events really shine.
Thank you both.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but that's just kind of like a sneak peek into like here's how we kind of lay out our stuff. Next up is the fishing bundle, the fish bundle that you actually interact with when the trials are active. We actually had to do some weird workarounds with that on the code side, and also just like with our art assets
Because there's something very wrong with that fish.
yes, so
It's a mutant fish.
it is a mutant fish.
That's what happens when you get exposed to Jormung's magic.
These ones didn't get corrupted.
You're not.
But this was the first time, I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you don't mind being attacked by birds for too long, while you're holding the fish scraps, if you jump up and down, that fish has physics, it will flop. It is a very floppy fish. So while we were trying to figure that out and how that bundle worked, we were running into some weird issues, and this is one of them where it's like all of the animation states for the fish were actually playing at the same time. So it's like the fish is both whole and not whole, but if you jumped, like they would all flop around. I don't have a GIF of that, unfortunately, but here's a nice little visual.
Schrodinger's floppy fish.
Yeah.
Just you mentioning being attacked by birds. You being attacked by birds is one of my favorite things.
Thank
in the lead up to the trial. Like when you're trying to turn in the scraps, these birds start attacking you
Yeah.
and pecking. They peck out your eyes.
Like the one unfortunate thing that didn't actually make it in that I really wanted to was like a conversation with the Coden where it's like, why are these birds attacking me? And it's like, dude, you stink. You're carrying around dead fish. What do you expect?
Yeah.
You're hungry. But that was pretty much it. So if we move on to the next one, once again, we were trying to figure out how to make this bundle work. And another kind of behind the scenes thing is that the way our bundles actually work in game is that we're just calling on a prop really, and then maybe like an animation variant for that prop. But it's we have to talk to the artists and be like, we need it rotated at this specific angle, at this specific scale. And what happens when we don't do that, or like when that isn't when we don't set it correctly, is like the scale of the thing could be really big and rotated incorrectly. So if you actually move on to the next picture, I think. That fish is a lot bigger than you think, and it's held the wrong way. And like that is a normal-sized person, so that is a very, very large fish. It took a while for the coding to get through that one.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
Yay!
What is this?
It's an Asura in a bucket. What's confusing?
Yeah, it's an Asura in a bucket. So when we got new assets for the chum buckets that you're using in the actual fishing events, I was trying to figure out a good way to determine how big they actually needed to be, because it's like, you're putting a bunch of fish in these buckets. I want to make it seem like you can actually fit a lot of fish in the buckets.
Attention to detail.
So basically, I was just like, hey, I'm gonna put an Asura in this bucket because I'm gonna measure by Asura, and if an Asura can fit in the bucket, it's good enough.
So what scale Asura is that though? Is that a max scale Asura, min scale Asura?
I think that's like a medium scale Asura.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Asura
it's
for
half
scale?
of a medium scale Asura.
Yes.
That's how we measure all things in Guild Wars 2.
that
It's
is
like
actually
when
how
we're
we
doing
measure all
attacks, we're like, we need this to be like 4 Asura long.
Yes, instead of Casimir's
makes-
as units of measurement.
Yes. No,
Because that was the thing for a
that was the Imperial system,
Yeah.
and we've long since switched over to the Tyrian
Casimir's
system.
were the Imperial system.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So this.
That's
this
why she's
Asura,
Lady Casimir Mead. She's an Imperial.
The thing is, like,
And-
you can't measure by half a Casimir, because like what is the cutoff point, right? Asuras are small enough that you can do a whole Asura.
you can dissect them in all sorts of different ways.
Tyrian math.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nick was at my desk, and we're like going through all of these, and I was like, okay, I really want to keep the Asura in the bucket. I need some kind of context that will let me.
We should have just brought it up and
this.
moved on and not explained why.
Just have-
It was there.
Just, like,
So
kept
they
going.
could have
Like-
just been like, "That's an image." Next.
Or just
this
all
is-
like stared at like the quadrant that's on the desk, just like
Yeah.
and then moved on.
Yes.
And then when people say things later, act like it never happened.
Yeah. What are you
Like,
talking
we didn't
about?
see
It was
that.
Jormeg.
Yes. Yes. And it's the whispers, but an Asura in a bucket.
Jormeg, put the Asura in the bucket. You know you want.
And I think that's
Okay.
all. It's all of them for the events.
It's for
right?
the events. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted by wanting VO for Asura in a bucket.
I mean,
But-
Okay.
maybe
Let's move on.
someday.
So, all right.
Uh,
So, yeah, the light puzzles and that kind of thing, or something else that you worked on.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about kind of like how they work, and also how we took some steps to make sure that like we can take what also shout out to Kevin Freeman, who was the person who built the initial system and all of the light puzzles within episode 1 side. Like I actually had to work with him a little bit on trying to have like changes made between branches, so that way episode 2's light puzzles can function somewhat similarly, because like there were things that my puzzles needed that like their puzzles like didn't. So having that kind of like cross team communication and implementation was really something that like it was difficult, but it was fun to do, and Kevin did an amazing job.
Okay, go Kevin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go Kevin Freeman. He's amazing.
Awesome.
But the
Okay,
way that he
so
actually
what's-
built these mirrors is that they. I'm going to go into like some designery
Please do.
programmer talk. They actually like query their initial position, and then they create some offset points off of the prop itself, which is the mirror, and then they create these spells that show up. And what you're looking at right now is 4 different spells that are all like rectangles on top of each other. And when the light actually comes at the mirror, it hits that spell, and then the spell is like, what rotation is my mirror at? If my mirror is not at that right rotation, I'm destroying this missile, because all of the lights are just missiles. And then when it is at the right rotation, allow that missile to reflect and continue moving on. And that's pretty much how they works. But I thought it'd be cool to show everybody, like, look at this, it's a purple box.
I love purple box.
Purple boxes are great.
Yeah.
With some functionality.
With some functionality.
That makes it
No.
worse.
Yeah.
Be nice. Behave yourself.
He's being amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's the best. And then I think
It's true.
so. Yeah, we're gonna like. I'll go back into kind of like the episode 1 to 2 side stuff later on. Also, please let me know when I start talking too much, because I talk too much.
Literally brought you here to talk.
I know, but
I will.
So
I promise.
I'll a lot of the episode 2 side ones had to do a lot more with
episode 2 side
episode
light
2
puzzles.
side light puzzles. Thank
Yes.
you. Had a lot to do with making sure that the environment and the actual puzzle like design system worked well together.
They're
So,
chamber
Yeah,
puzzles.
They're,
Yeah, which
they're,
is really
they're
neat.
mini dungeons, which is something that I was basically told make 6 puzzles, and I'm like, great, okay. So
No problem.
I wanted to think about how to make each of them unique, but also kind of leading into like a further progression, if you will. So I had to work a lot with our map artist, Justin Fawcett, which shout out to him. He did an absolutely amazing job. And really, the only reason I wanted to touch on the puzzles is because, like, look at this. Like, at some point, you're going to see my drawings, and I'm like, look at this bad. Look at this bad. And then look at
No.
his good. He made good. So the first one, which I think is also the most complex one, is the elevation puzzle, which is what you're looking at right now. And so, like, as you can see, here is this beautiful artwork that you can totally screenshot, make your background. And Mark, if you just want to keep going through them. These are all different rooms and kind of like the visualizations of all the rooms that we had within the elevation puzzle and kind of how they worked. And some of these pictures are going to have earlier iterations of what it looked like. Like in this one right here, as you can see, one of the shrines is actually below the initial platform. But we found that that was hard to visually communicate that you had completed everything. So Justin actually pulled it up, which also he did an amazing job just like rolling with all the feedback on all this. But if we keep on going on, yeah, like as you can see, it's just like all of these rooms look absolutely amazing and large scale and just visually stunning. And then once we kind of get to the end of this, that you see things like this, which it's just like, hey, the initial concept was this. We were like in a room, we were talking, and we made some doodles, and we're like, hey, here are the kind of the elements that we need. How do we break this up in a way that's going to allow for this to feel fun and functional and create something that is, puzzling, but not like too difficult, because we wanted this to be a lot more like exploratory than it was challenging. So like, yeah.
I think these puzzles add a lot to the map.
Yeah.
They're just
I agree.
a really nice reward for people who want to explore, and and it's like you go through one of the Raven Gates, and then you're like, oh wow, like there's a whole chamber hidden here, and they all have beautiful, as you were saying, they all have beautiful views. Which we're gonna look at some of the other ones, but
yeah. And that was it pretty much for the elevation puzzle. It's just like that one we really wanted to play with verticality and see like, how can we make it so that way if I'm down here, I can see where my lights are going up and below me? And how does that all kind of interact together?
So you have that guide.
Yes, you have that guide of like, this light source goes down there, and then it goes to that thing. And like, you're just having to follow where it goes within these areas, but also understanding, I'm in the bottom room. It's going up there. How do I get up to there? Or how do I get down to that area? Yeah, so then if we'll be moving on to the jump puzzle next, which is the one that is actually under Drakkar. So our initial concept was like, hey, what if, because this kind of had to conform somewhat to the actual space around Drakkar, it kind of had to be like a circular dome thing. So we played with the idea of like kind of a spiral rampage up. So it's like the middle area is pretty much empty, but you're scaling up the sides of this like ice tunnel. And once again, Justin just grabbed it and let it roll and did an amazing job. And like, if we move on to the next slides,
this one looks like it changed quite a bit from the initial drawing.
Somewhat. Like, I think
we should go on to the next slide.
Yeah, like I think conceptually, it's like this is actually kind of what it started out with. Like this was just him protoing the area, and he's like, what props, would work in this area? What can I utilize to make this function? And then if we move on to the rest of the stuff, it's a lot of like, okay, how, like he was also testing out a lot of the shape around the area, because and also like how do we have that like that catch-all for when people fall. And then if we keep going, it's just like you start seeing spaces start becoming a lot more filled in. and designed around kind of what's going on. And like, you know, there was a lot of back and forth between, there was a lot of back and forth kind of required around during the development of this, where it's like, you know, we would be like, we need this to be a little bit different, and we kind of need like this thing moved over here, and it is a time consuming process, but at the same time, it's definitely worth it. And yeah, I mean, I think we can just kind of go through all the rest of the. Oh, that was it. Hey. I was about to say, you just go through all the rest of the.
Okay, so
ones.
to be fair, we did.
Yeah.
Now, a question on that, though. As you do the whiteboard drawings, they're not bad. You can't actually draw a screenshot on a whiteboard, so they are good, and they are functional, and they do what they're supposed to.
Yes.
First of all, so they're fine. How much do you...
You did good.
Be nice to yourself.
Good.
How much do they fit into the constraints of the map when they're coming onto the whiteboard? Or are you just like, hey, here's the thing that I have in mind. Now I'll go to the map artist and now make them fit into the constraints of the map.
It's a mix of both. Like I think, if I remember correctly, we actually had a few other designs as well that I had just forgotten to put in the slides, but we
don't have enough.
Yeah, because we definitely don't have enough. So basically it was like, there was a proposal of like, we need this many. And we were like, okay, I will make this many.
Right.
And from that many, we kind of picked out the ones for like the actual mini dungeon stuff that would work in this space, and where we'd be able to put them. Because there were some that like I had just gone kind of crazy overboard with, where there was one where it's like, the room is completely dark, and there are these like ice it's like an ice caverns that are super dark, and the way that you would actually move through it is that you would have to follow the light source at all times, and you would have to be cognizant of where you're standing, because like it's like that one Pokemon gym in, I think, the Johto region, where like everything is dark and you have to follow a specific path, and if you fall down, you get brought back to the beginning.
A bunch of areas in Pokemon. They played that a lot in the earlier games.
But like that initial concept kind of played out in our map. So there was one like that, and there was another one where you'd be kind of taken through like across the map, and it would play a lot more with Raven Puzzle or the Raven Gate Mastery, where it would actually bring you into like these nook and cranny areas within the map that would allow for you to kind of see like, it teleported me to over here. Okay, I can see the light over there. I need to like run through this mini like corridor real quick, solve this micro puzzle, and then get kicked back out to another area that would then like loop into other things.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like here's kind of the map space that we have. How can we use it? It's more like here are all the designs. Which designs are going to best fit the thing, and then if there aren't enough of these designs that fit, the like for this, it was the micro puzzle kind of aesthetic. How can we fill the rest of the requirements? Which is why we have the open world across map one, and also the what I call the open air one, which is just like it's on the episode 2 side, and then there's the across map side one, which I'll talk about a little bit later.
I really enjoyed. Never mind. We'll talk about that. I was meant to bring that up when we get to the cross map one.
Okay, you can compliment me whenever you want.
I just really enjoyed Wooden Potatoes. But description of the one that goes across the entire map, where he's like, it's so long that I got annoyed with it, and then I fell in love with it again, and I really loved it.
Like a whole story arc right there.
And I'll touch on a little bit of like the reasoning behind that. But Maze Puzzle was actually a really, really fun one. And what you're going to see is, once again, some of the initial concepts. We actually had to we played around with different props for a little bit before we actually, Mark, actually, if you can go back to the last one real quick. Before we put in the Raven Walls, we actually futzed around and tried out using portcullis. That's how you pronounce it. I know Jason has pronounced it correctly. Shout out to Jason. But it's basically like the portcullis will go down and the light can pass through, but you can't. So it's like, how do I get to this next area? How do I cause these gates to open up? And through that, like if you see there are also 2 pressure plates on the ground, we actually had played a lot with mechanics around pressure plates, kind of like in Breath of the Wild, where you would have to like find giant boulders or like find a way to break parts of the puzzle to like bring down the boulders, and then put them on the pressure plates to open up these portcullis and find the pressure plates. But you know, as we kind of had to iterate, and then we also want to make sure that like when you're in these areas, you never feel griefed by other players. So we had to make a lot of adjustments, and then what we ended up coming up with was being able to reutilize the episode 1 mastery with the Raven Walls, which I thought was really cool and worked out really well, thankfully. So then if we just want to keep on a move, yeah, just more pretty art of kind of like the development process, and like what talking a little bit of kind of like what Justin does is like I think it's like bi-weekly or weekly, like they will take some screenshots of their progress of how things are going, and then they'll post it on our shared Confluence pages, really cool. To kind of show like, here's where these things are, here's like some visual aesthetic work that we're doing. So like
it's also a really nice way to stay and like keep it in touch with all the stuff that other teams are doing, because you'll see like occasionally you'll see really cool art coming in and you'll be like, oh, I want to see that, I can't wait to see that.
Those updates in my inbox are some of the most fun emails I get. I love seeing these.
Oh yeah, all the art emails are absolutely amazing. But like I basically
also sorry, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. Shout out to all of the map artists, because these are gorgeous.
All of the map artists are like absolutely amazing. Yeah. And as you're seeing, like we're just kind of rolling through all of the different like versions of what the maze puzzle looked like. But what I really liked about making this one, and I'm kind of like kicking myself because I forgot to include the secondary drawing that I had made for it, which actually, so like this is the first drawing. So once again, look at this. I was just like, hey, I want it. So that way, like you have a first room that kind of teaches the initial mechanic of like, you need to make wall move, right? Remove wall. And then you go into the next area, and it's like all of the reward stuff is right here, but all of the mechanical stuff is outside. So how do we get that going? And then there was a lot of conversation with Justin around like, well, would it be possible to make the light actually travel above this maze that's below it? So that way players could, like, as they're running through the maze, look up and be like, okay, the light's going that way, so I need to go that way. But then the maze is like a maze, so it's trying to figure out how we go through that area to get to that next point. Yeah. And then once that's done, we don't want to make you go back through that maze because you've already understood it. So it's like, what is the next logical path? Let's have both of these things in the middle, and then find a way to like open up some more doors to then just go back into the reward room, which, as you can see, is there. So like, I just once again shout out to him because he did such an amazing job just taking this like very very simple concept and making something so beautiful and like insanely and perfectly functional around it. And what I really liked about the maze puzzle is that I wanted to experiment a lot with traps, and there were initially a lot more traps in that one. But I kind of had to pull back more and more and more as we were getting feedback around a lot of it. And what we ended up with was just kind of the ones that you see on the ground, which before that there were ones that like you would have to walk through a corridor, and there was like some visual tells on the actual like arch on like if there was going to be spikes coming out of them or not, and if there were, like, you'd have to dodge through it. Sometimes there would be just like boulders coming down from the ceiling, kind of like in the one from season 3, episode 4, and other things like that. Excuse me. But what we ended up with was that one where the different tiles pulsate this electrical kind of like magical essence on a rotation pattern. Timer. All those things. All the above. And just quick, once again, shout out to Eric F. Fagerstrom, who actually helped me out with that, because like I had made this initial script of like if you're this one, wait this long, and then that one fires, and then you do this thing, and over here, and then it wasn't working, and I was like, why you no work?
Oh no.
So then he was the content programmer for episode 1. I like asked him to come help me out, and then we like talked it out, and he just like programmed, like he wizarded it. Yeah, and then it's just like
wizardized. There it is. We got it.
It's like tell each one what it is, and then the rotation just happens. So like I would have this like 3x3 grid, and that'd be like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, or like 1 1 1 2 2 2 3 3 3, and then like just by figuring that out, I could see what the patterns would become, and that's kind of how you can see all these different pulsating patterns going through the puzzle.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Okay. Also, those things hurt. And I'm happy that they hurt.
And now we know.
And now you know. So be careful with them.
All right. What else do we have? Hey. We
This
have
is the
more
one we were
open
talking
world.
about.
Yeah. So on this one, what you're actually seeing right here is when I figured out that I would need to do some that actually weren't in these mini dungeons, I wanted to take a look at all of the puzzles that we already had and then see how I could utilize the mirrors over there, because I didn't want to add more props to that side because I didn't want to create confusion around like, well, is this one for that one?
Yeah.
So what, like first off, for the one on our side, if you ended up doing that one first, which, you know, progressionally, hopefully it made sense, you would see that like that puzzle, like one or two of the mirrors for that puzzle are also utilized by the across map puzzle. And then what the across map puzzle does is it serves two purposes. It serves the purpose of getting you from the episode 2 side of the map to the episode 1 side of the map, and just kind of like giving you a tour of like hopefully where all the events are happening, refamiliarizing you with the episode 1 side of the map.
Okay.
Making it all feel connected.
Yeah, making it all feel connected, and also kind of giving you that good feeling of like, if you've done these before, you understand how to get to all of these mirrors. So you know that it's going to that mirror, and then it's like, wait, it's going to that mirror, and then you get that quick understanding of like, it's going to reflect off of that one. I know how to get to that one, and then like you go up. So it's
So you
kind
get that
of like,
refresher.
yeah, you get that refresher and all those. And this picture right here is basically me being like, where are all of the different mirrors? How can I create a path to all of those mirrors? How can I utilize mirrors from each individual puzzle on the episode 2 side, while also, you know, figuring out where to place ones on the episode 1 side. And the cross map one, what you were touching on earlier, where like WP said it was long, it used to be way longer.
Are you serious?
Yes, I got feedback that was like, we need to bring this one down. So I was like removing like, I think 1/3 of the mirrors just gone.
People
We're
are
starting over
messaging
here
me
now.
like, "Are you all right?"
I've been doing this. Well, the problem is, so people started, we put testers on the puzzle,
Yeah.
right? And then we'd never hear from them again because they were just doing the puzzle
They're
for the rest
still
of their lives.
there.
They're still
Are you
doing the
check-
puzzle
go
to
get
these
them.
days.
You
No, I
guys.
mean, we got to know if the old puzzle works.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, you should talk about the thing that you want to talk about.
Which thing? There's a lot of things I want to talk about. The
the-
spooks.
Oh no, just the part around this that you were talking
That's
about.
what you just said it.
Oh,
But how like it's just really cool.
oh, sorry for stealing your thunder.
No. It was
Fascinating.
just that Wooden Potatoes like talked about the length and how it like it has a nice arc of like where you realize the twist that is going back into the old stuff.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yeah.
is he one of the testers? Do we need to go get him?
Wooden Potatoes is not one of our testers.
Okay.
No, but I mean, you know, maybe we cloned him, maybe we didn't. Who knows?
If so, I'm pretty sure most of the bugs he would give would be lore related. He'd be like, "This contradicts something," and like,
Material did not exist in Tyria.
yeah. There's no
Make the mirrors
aluminum
out of
in
something
Tyria.
else.
So like, I'm gonna talk a lot faster now because we're about halfway done, and I want to give Connor some time
Yes.
to say some words
Yes,
too.
I have a list of things that I want Connor to talk about. So
Yeah.
okay,
So,
puzzles.
uh,
And
Yeah,
we
just-
have questions
just-
from.
yeah, and we're gonna have
Good people
questions
watching.
for
Yeah,
people
yeah,
too. So this is open world, kind of what the layout is. Cool. If you want to pause it, check it out, go for it. But that's for the smaller one.
You're still okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Okay.
like,
Okay.
yeah.
Portals.
And then portal
Waving
puzzle.
portals.
This one's my favorite.
Yeah,
visually.
this one also is like, like we'll get to the screenshot. I'll talk a little bit about it, but like,
This is
you
the one we
know,
showed in the trailer.
yeah. Once
Yeah.
again, Justin did an amazing job. Just kind of taking the like, it's interesting because you never really understand when you're drawing these things out what the actual like sense of scale will end up being until you see it. And like, you know,
Yeah.
there's a character right there that Justin kind of just popped into the world to show like this is how big it's gonna be, right? And
Yeah,
it's
you get a player character in there in a lot of these, and you're just like,
Mhm.
oh.
Yeah, and as you can see, like once again, if you look where like the red light is, there's like that little circle with the plate on it. Those were the pressure plates that we were utilizing before. And this one actually, before we did the portcullis, we actually had solid walls that would go down. So it's like you would actually have to kind of figure out that there was a way forward.
Really?
Yeah, so we went from like solid walls to portcullis to then utilizing the
Magic-y
episode 1
Walls.
magic-y walls. Yeah. And
I love this one.
yeah, this one has like a really like kind of we weren't finished yet. Like
When things
visual
went south.
style.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
So beautiful.
Yeah. It's all really nice. And then this picture right here. So the portal puzzle is like visually one of my like probably my top one because you go through these rooms, right? It feels very kind of tight and slightly claustrophobic while you're running through trying to figure out how to get to the next area, and then you get to what is actually the second part of the puzzle, and it's just open space, and like walking out of that hallway and then turning around for the first time, and like me having seen that, just that vista right in front of me, I was like, this is amazing. I think I remember like instantly just like messaging Justin, and I was like, this is amazing. Also, of course, winded, because he took my breath away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And actually, this is a part of the maze puzzle, I think, if I remember correctly. I might have put that in the wrong folder, sorry.
That's okay, it's still beautiful.
Yeah, and then like, yeah, look at that beautiful cavernous vista. It's so good. Yeah. And that is the initial drawing that I had made for it, where it's just like, so actually, with this one,
like the drawing.
Yeah, shout out to Taylor Sutherland. He actually had kind of like prototyped an early version of this, where it was more of, once again, kind of like Pokemon. Sabrina, I think, is her name.
I feel like you have a dominant reference point here.
I mean, like, I just love Pokemon, man. Personally, but like
It turns out we all play games.
Yeah. You would step on these panels, and the panels would teleport you around. But we wanted to integrate the mastery more and kind of like extend this as a whole. So then, instead of using the tiles, what we ended up doing is we were like, we'll utilize the Raven Gates to be able to take you from area to area, and then you have to figure out like how do I get to that mirror? How do I turn that mirror? And then how do I get to the other portal? Which is the right portal? And then how do I move forward into the next, and progressing forward towards the end? And yeah, I think that's everything for portals.
I just remember having a discussion about the title that you'd get from doing this, and we're like, we really want the title to be Luminiferous, and Alex is like, it's not. That's not. And eventually he was like, okay, fine, it'll be Luminiferous.
There was a lot of discussion
How
around
did
that
you get
one.
him to allow that?
I don't remember.
What did you give him?
I don't remember either. I think I just kind of like.
I think he secretly liked it
Blacked
all
out.
along,
Yeah.
but he needed to pretend that he was like, no, and then he was like, okay, yeah.
So that's not why he's moving his desk right now.
No.
Okay. It's like I can't stand it.
No.
All right. So I know there were a lot of images, but they
There
were
were.
kind of fantastic. So thank you.
It's really nice
This
to
is
be able
not
to
a bad
show
thing.
how all that stuff evolves.
Yeah, I hope everybody out there liked it.
Yeah.
I did. So can we talk about some of the spooky scenes?
Sure. Let's talk about the spooky scenes.
Please
So, there in episode 0, in prologue, Bound by Blood,
Yes.
I had done some experiments with player-specific characters where, I had Bram. You could pick him from prison. He walked up the stairs, and he'd go visit the warden. It was really simple. A really simple scene, but they were already. The episode 1 team had been started to do stuff with you've got whispers that are player-specific, and I'm like, what's a good escalation of this? So basically, what I did is we started leaning into all of those, every tool that we've ever had to make things that are unique for players, and we have a bunch of scenes around the map that there's a low probability that when you enter an area, things might go wrong or things might go different. And I don't think I'm pretty sure people haven't found them all. There's quite a few of them. They're all pretty damn creepy. Alex's writing, I remember when I was reading the scripts, Alex's script for those, I'm just reading them and I'm like, these are fantastic and these are creepy and I need to implement them right now. And so one I know that people have seen is there's the Coden who shows up, who's carving in the wall, and if you approach him too early, he knocks you back and he says, "Not yet, right?
Yikes.
Don't look at my stuff." Then he eventually is like, "It is done. Take a look at my work."
He's a true artist.
Yeah. And then you take a look at his work, and and it says it says something very creepy. I don't want to spoil the actual words. Then you can look at him, and he's like, "Do you like it?" It's there's a lot like that. There's one which I won't describe, but I will say my internal name for it is Barry the Chopper. That is Bearrry.
Connor found his puns, everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so I highly recommend so maybe sometime when you're alone exploring the marshes late at night, you might see some things that are only for you.
And
So
unsettling.
play alone in your house at night with the lights out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like jump scares, but like it's going to be like they're little scenes that are like they are unsettling, and they're different from anything we've done in the game before. Because there's a problem that Alex touched on is like, how do you do horror when there's 80 players running around? And one of the things that I was thinking about is kind of that eternal darkness. I'm going to use my own touchstone style of my perceptions or may not be what I'm seeing. You could be like, oh my god, like what's going on here? And other people will be like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like things like that. So yeah.
I mean, if I could just touch on real quick, like we mentioned that a little bit in the preview that we had done last week, I think it was. Time. It's a concept, everybody.
I've heard.
But we touched on a little bit like playing, like it was something that if you're by yourself or with other players, like you will get an experience out of it. And I think what's really cool is that we have actually heard people tell stories about those experiences that are happening, where it's like, did you hear that? Did you see that? And everybody else is like, what are you talking about? Are you okay?
So one of the pieces of feedback that I've heard consistently that a lot of people like it, that we're leaning into that horror theme and that we're sticking with it on this saga. And something that is a really good horror touchstone is when the game or the experience or the thing that you're watching or the thing that you're experiencing seems to be either unique to you or somehow aware of you. And that can be, it doesn't have to be a jump scare.
Right.
It can be terrifying in its own way.
I mean, just to go back to Eternal Darkness again, which everyone go find that game and play it, because
Mark's
not enough.
over there like,
I'm still dreaming that Nintendo will make a sequel one day, and if I plug it, then anyway, moving on. Probably shouldn't be doing that. They actually had like one jump scare in that entire game, and it was just the constant like messing with like your perceptions that made it interesting. And yeah, you can have creepy without like without having the jump scares. Although we do have one jump.
Yes, we do have one jump.
Yes, there's a little jump.
Yeah, and there are like there are smaller tidbit ones that like it's not just these scripted scenes. It's also recantings and retellings of things that have happened to the people kind of around the map. Like if you spoiler alert, hey, if you come to the giant ship in the middle of the map at a certain time, like you're gonna see some like code and ghosts. Right, if you walk around specific parts of the map, you're gonna see like some deceased visual soldiers, some like deceased Coden, and like animated in the way of like what was happening to them in the last moments of their death. So like some of them are like shivering in a corner because they like froze to death, or like there are other ones that are like like dying, and it's like, well, what killed them?
It's a very happy map.
It's very very happy.
Is it?
map.
Yeah.
Because
Splendid.
there's a
Jormak
thing
thinks
where
it's a
I'm
happy
having a
map.
different experience than you.
Well,
That's what you're talking about.
what we didn't mention is that there's a really, 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 really rare scene where everyone who showed up in the game ever comes to you and it's like throws you a party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a
Oh,
1 in a billion chance. So when you see that scene, please let
Nobody's
me know.
found it yet. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's
We put a lot of work into that one too.
Everybody has
Yeah.
their party
I was surprised we
hats.
got the budget for that.
yeah, it was like. Let's move on. Someone's going to
think
actually
this-
be like, ArenaNet spent all their money on a party scene that no one's going to see.
What are you talking about? We definitely did that.
Nick.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just picturing that. It's fantastic. And I love it, and I sort of want it now.
Yeah, now I want to actually like sneak in a little party scene, so someone's like, "It's real."
Just-
Well, of course it is real.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
one
What are you
party
talking about?
hat.
Yeah,
And like what was crazy that we actually decided to bring back a lot of old characters too.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, like
Oh,
Tibble
God.
comes back from the dead,
He's my
and it's
favorite.
like,
I love it when he like showed up and he like
yes,
high fives you.
it turns out the party hats are magic and can bring. We should really move on.
So you also worked on the final instance.
Yes.
That was a thing you had a hand in.
Yes.
Were the party wait, no, sorry.
There's no party hats in the final instance.
You did this.
Or are there?
So I mean, the obviously there's several big things in the final instance. It's the reveal that Drakkar has always been a shell for the actual entity that's causing the whispers, which is the Whisper of Jormag. It was really interesting because our strike mission being the Whisper of Jormag, during our trailer, we had to be like, we can't show this. Let's just show you like fighting an echo of yourself. But that there are some nice reveals. Obviously, the bit where Ritlock and Krisha turn on you is a beat that was like, we initially didn't have you attack Ritlock and Krisha, right? And it just felt like a weirdly anticlimactic thing if after the beat they just like stop and it's like, okay, sorry, it's
Our bad.
yeah. So there was a lot of stuff around that, right? And then of course there was going to Eye of the North at the end and the reveal of the Arene. And I have to say, like, for me, one of the things that really helps that sequence work, we've given shout outs to the music a lot, but McLean did a great new rendition of the Arene theme. It's kind of like a mix of all the different Arene themes we've done over time. There's the very classic one, the do, 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 and then like kind of the more choir one.
Yeah.
And it's the first time you're seeing her as an Elder Dragon, and she's just there, and this beautiful version of this song that you heard the first time you've met her plays again. And I thought that was there was a lot of people had emotional reactions to that, and I was pretty happy with that.
I mean, I had an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
Like I've been on like every piece of content since the moment she like hatched from her egg, and I was like, my baby.
Yeah. She's now like twice your size. If no, way more
I was
than
like,
that.
wow.
I mean, like she
Nick's
had a
character is huge.
Yeah.
She had a glow up, literally.
Yes.
Seriously.
Actually, at one point, she was so bright. Like, when you go into the instance, you're like, wow, she's shiny. She used to be way shinier.
So
Really?
yeah,
Insane.
a joke
she was
that
the sun.
I'm surprised I've not seen the player base make, probably because they've been too obsessed with unicorns. Is Oreen is super shiny, and I really want a comic of the commander being like, Oreen, why are you so shiny all the time? And then it cuts the commander like wearing like all these infusions and being super bright, and she's like, I learned it from you.
I learned it from you, Dad.
I learned it from you, or Mom. But yes. I learned it from you, Commander.
Parental unit.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you should
I'm shiny because this is what you made me.
And like what you did to Kaith, right? Like when she was like, Kaith, you're getting a new look.
Yeah, it's
She's
like,
just like,
everyone
damn,
gets, you
you're
get an
shiny now
infusion,
too.
and you get an infusion. And like,
Oh, no.
yeah, Oreen just stacked all her infusions.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's
I
not
love it.
the shininess is not part of being an Elder Dragon.
No.
It's just that she got all the
She
cosmetics.
has just like 12
banked
infusions.
them.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Like her bank account is just, you don't want to.
I mean, she has killed like 2 world bosses,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And she's been with us through like, she ate Joko. I'm sure that like he had some loot stored somewhere.
Yeah.
She was just like, thanks.
yeah. Joko's sick loot.
Yeah, she got like the key to his
From
safe
when he
deposit
killed
box.
Zaitan and Mortiamoth and
You're, like, tearing up a little
Balthazar.
bit.
Oh my
This
God.
is what happens when you put
Okay.
Conrad on the same stream.
I'm gonna do it again then.
Oh, no.
It needs
Please
to happen more.
We talk too much.
Okay, no, I like it. Let's talk about the Lost Spirit Shrines,
Sure.
and then you have an upcoming thing that
Yes,
I want
I
you
do.
to show off.
Absolutely, we should.
But first, the Lost Spirit Shrines.
Yeah, no, so the Lost Spirit Shrines were really interesting because they're all unique, right? And it was an opportunity to like dive into like what defines each of these spirits, right? The Ox is all about perseverance. Wolverine is about valor in the face of absolutely horrifying creatures that will murder you if they see you. An Eagle Shrine is about being clever and finding a way to overcome your obstacles. And there was a really nice opportunity to like take. I want to give a shout out to Taylor Sutherland, who worked on a lot of those early on. But we iterated on them a ton. But like the Ox one, where he's like, there's a lot of things where it's like, here's this concept. I want you to drag salt blocks, and I'm like, okay. Like, how do we make this as like oxy as possible? And I don't know. There's a lot of the making the ox block, the salt block actually move behind you, which I've seen sometimes. Like it gets detached from people, and then the chain just gets super long. But was a really interesting thing because we haven't really done anything like that before, where there's a physical object that's moving behind you. I think we kind of did it with the there's a thing in episode 6 of last season where you can fly in your sky scale. And like, there's a chain dragging crystals behind you, but this was different. Like, it's a giant, heavy thing.
Yeah.
And there was actually initially the block didn't turn when you did. That was something I added towards the end. It would drag, but it would only move if you had like moved forward. So what would happen is like you'd like start walking this way and go. But the flip side of this was if you walked around it, the ropes would stay attached here, and they'd like go through your butt. So like there's quite a bit of work required.
Just physics weirdness.
Yeah, to make it so the ropes were coming out of your sides at all times. And then the Wolverine Shrine was really interesting.
Our
I think
jobs are weird. Sorry.
yeah, bugs are great. The Wolverine Shrine was a really interesting one because open world. People talked about how they want the Bone Skinner to be scary, right? And we in events and a lot of the ones we fight it's a stoppable thing. But we did it because you're closer to Drakkar and Jormag's power. We can amp this up a lot, and so really leaning into the idea that you can't be seen. You need to be stealthy and get through this is a really interesting thing in the open world that we had to balance very carefully. At one point it was way too hard, and then it was too easy. And what were you about to say? You have a
Just
face.
that I'm not good at it.
Yeah, it is difficult. But you get credit for trying, right? Mm-hmm. Which is I think one of the big things we did. It used to be at one point there was no resetting your darkness counter, which was way slower, but it you just couldn't reset it no matter what. And we changed the flow so every time you hide in the light it resets, so it's more about getting from point to point carefully.
Mm-hmm. It was much harder.
Yeah. The mushrooms used to not have telegraphs, which made a huge difference because now you can definitely see when they're popping up and get out of there. There's a lot of feedback stuff that needed to be. Well, that's always the challenge with stealth. Any stealth mechanics is how do you communicate clearly the parameters to the player. But yeah. Anyway, so the Wolverine Shrine, I will say, was probably the event I was most nervous about.
Really?
Yes. Everyone on the team had done great work, right?
Mm-hmm.
At Drakkar, I was feeling pretty good about Drakkar. I was feeling good about the trials. I was feeling good about most of the shrines. But Wolverine, that stuff, the way that event feels changes when it was based on the number of people who have hit it. And I knew it worked pretty well from most scales, but still hitting live is always different, right?
Yeah.
But the answer is people seem to respond to it pretty well, and it was a neat, different event. So yeah, I feel pretty good about it in the end.
To kind of touch on what Connor was talking about earlier with that, a lot of this episode and even the previous episode were based around how do you make someone feel scared or unsettled in a game where you have the ability to combat everything, right?
Yeah.
You have the ability to face that fear with a sword every
You can
single
literally
time.
cleanse your fear status sales.
You can, with buff effects and stuff like that. It's insane. So this entire Your Marshes map, we had to play a lot with how do we make people feel unsettled and afraid regardless of what they have equipped and who they're with. And I think that I know that, shout out to Connor, you did a great job making the Wolverine Shrine feel very unsettling and nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's also Justin did a great job with the
course.
environment art, circles
always.
of creepy trees and yeah. No.
Yeah, this is basically just the Justin is an amazing map artist show.
All the shrines, and all the shrines are really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Ox Shrine, which is a mud pit. It's a very beautiful mud pit.
As mud pits go, yes, it's one of the better ones I've seen.
Yeah, it's one of the top 10 mud pits I've listed by Forbes Travel Magazine.
I think it's actually
I
my
can
top
honestly
5.
say it's one of the top 10 mud pits on my list too.
Yeah, all right.
Glad we can all agree on something.
Yeah.
Good job on that. Yes, because we usually fight so much.
But yeah, the Eagle Shrine has got those really cool eagle walls and things like that. One of the other things that was kind of interesting about the shrines is setting up the Bram scenes. There's a lot of I honestly think the presentation of those scenes worked out, watching them live worked out very well, because often our open world story steps have the problem of 80 people are standing on top of the character you need to talk to, but having giant spirit Bram talking with giant spirit animal, it's just everyone standing around going,
Whoa.
look at that.
And then other people inadvertently being what are they staring at?
Why are all these people here?
Should we look too?
Are they AFK'd?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm confused. Why are they all AFK'd in the exact same spot?
Yeah.
Is there loot here?
There was something here, you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Or it'll come later. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
All right, you guys, everyone on the team did really, really good work. So, Cameron mentioned in the last segment that there is some more stuff coming, and he promised that you would show us things.
Yeah, so we are, as part of the build on February 11th, we are shooting for not only an update to Drakkar mechanically that should force you to engage with the mechanics a little bit more, and we're also in a pairing with this, adding some new rewards. So I'd like to show off. These are called this is called the Broken Voice set. It is essentially a version of the. I'm blanking out on its name now.
Boreal weapons?
The boreal weapons that like Jormag has, like I think the description which Alex wrote for them, which is I love, is like perfection has a price and Jormag will happily pay it.
Oh, dang.
So why don't we bring these up? That move that have been attached to each of them, which I think really like brings out the look a lot. I took this footage in Grothmar Valley for some reason.
Because Grothmar Valley's cool.
Grothmar Valley is cool. And then we've got the staff, I think there's also footage of.
Yay.
You also got the bow, right?
Yes, and the bow is the third one. So they're just kind of like a nice, they're like, it's a different color scheme, so like you still have a reason to get like the crafted ones, but they've also got some really nice flourish to them. Yeah, I was just showing off a couple of them. All of them look great. I just picked a few of them to show off, so you can see the other ones when they go live. These will drop from Drakkar. They will drop probably. I know people are always worried that when things drop, it's going to be like almost impossible to get. They will not be impossible to get, but Drakkar, because Drakkar itself will be hard. The idea is like the challenge comes from actually getting to the place where you can get these things. Yeah. So yeah, and then we're also adding the Winter's Heart infusion. There will be another way to get it. Will be fighting Drakkar and the etched weapons that are part of the upgrading to the corrupted weapon set. So we're adding quite a few things to Drakkar.
Thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
Can you remind me which one is the Winter's Heart infusion again?
The Winter's Heart infusion, I believe, is the one where it's you're like snowy.
Well, I thought that was the shoulder pieces. Is
No.
it not the one where it's like the
You
fire?
look
from your
super
chest?
frozen and
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have so many like winter themed ones. I legitimately do not remember
Yeah.
which one it is.
So I mean, those will all be a nice incentive for people to. Basically, like I think the thing I want to remind people is when an episode immediately releases, that's not really the end of the story.
we are still coming back to work.
Yeah, we still go back to work. We don't immediately move on to the next thing. There's a reason the teams are staggered, but that they work on different content so that we can continue to tweak the stuff that we've released. And so, like a lot of the stuff that we've been hearing about Drakkar's difficulty and all the other things are things that we're paying attention to and seeing what we can do.
Yeah.
And if we can bring out that just shine it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty happy with the stuff we're working out with Drakkar. It feels like
So glad.
pairing this revision with rewards is going to feel like a nice a nice meaty secondary update.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I guess if I can touch on a little bit, we do read through all the as much of the feedback as we can because there's
a lot of it.
But we do take a lot of that stuff to heart, and because of the cadence, sometimes we're given opportunities where we are allowed to make some adjustments and some pivots that kind of cater to that feedback and hopefully create a better user experience. I've seen a lot of people talking about episode 2 feels like a next level up to episode 1, and it's episode 1 team did an amazing job. I wouldn't exactly say that. It's just more so we had the chance to be able to see because this is one continuous map, we're not changing things holistically. So we were able to kind of see what a lot of the feedback was from players and be able to once again pivot, kind of implement some things that would hopefully address the things that people actually liked. So I think both episodes and both teams did an amazing job.
Yeah. All right, so if you guys have questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. We'll answer a couple of questions in the time we have left. Drakkar's new mechanics,
Yes.
the new rewards coming February 11th.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless something goes horribly wrong, which is always possible, but I'm pretty sure it's not
You
going to happen.
literally just caused something to
No, I jinxed it. Okay.
Okay.
What motivated you guys to bring back Ox, Eagle, and Wolverine? I think it's we wanted to die. My time pulling my thing back. We are doing Norn and Char stuff. That's what we're the big focus this season. And the Lost Spirits of the Wild have been kind of a dangling thread. It's like we touched on them. They were thought to be gone, and it seemed like it was really it gave us an opportunity to explore the spirits in general. Have Wolf show up as well, and really dive into them in a way I don't think we have in the core story outside of Norn stuff. and there's some really nice player specific dialogue as well for especially if you're a wolf follower.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, our main motive was like this is something that is a part of like every time we look at an episode, it's like what parts we build such a massive world in Guild Wars 2. The metaphor I always use is it's like working in like a shared comic universe like Marvel or DC, where like you're going to tell a storyline that's in this one part. What are all the stories that have been told there before that are relevant, right? And when we're dealing with Drakkar, who's corrupted the Norn in the past, it seems very natural to tie in like other creatures being corrupted and some of the lost spirits who were chased by Jormag and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Spirit of the Wolf, and there was a note that I meant to call out earlier that I really liked. It was just a tiny little touch that was so funny and so good when you first were with Bram and he was talking to the Spirit of the Wolf, and Bram just got excited and like finished a sentence for the wolf spirit. It's a very dignified wolf spirit, just went.
Yeah, Wolf Spirit was thinking about just smiting him right there.
And Bram's like, sorry, you probably wanted to say that.
There's an alternate version of the episode where Bram just immediately gets smite by Wolf Spirit.
Isn't it smote?
Smote. Smooted.
It might be
Smooted.
smited. Smat.
All right, chat. What's the past tense of smite? Anyway.
Please answer that for us.
There's a question about more spirit stories and if we'll learn more about Owl. I can't really answer that. It's just we'll see what comes.
That's a predictive narrative question.
It's basically, as the Icebrood Saga continues on, we're going to be doing our best to touch on some old stuff along with some new stuff, and all we can really say is stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yes, stay tuned is actually a very good idea.
Actually, so whenever my friends, because a lot of my friends know that I work at ArenaNet and they also play our game, they're always like, "What's the new hotness?" And I'm just like, "Stay tuned."
That is an excellent answer. Also, it is now almost 2 o'clock, so we need to wrap up.
Okay.
Because it got late. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for 2 hours.
Smite,
smote,
smitten.
Smitten.
I feel smitten.
Yeah, when Bram got smitten with the...
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Bram was not smitten.
Can you finish that sentence?
No, I'm not. I think I'm good.
Sure? Okay.
I've already made... Last stream, I already made like a Ritlock and Logan like joke. Yes.
Yeah, you're the first one to do that.
On a stream? You're joking.
Probably
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I assume not.
All right. Thank you all
We
for
literally
hanging out
published
with us
like a
for
novel excerpt.
yeah, we did actually. Snurgle. Thank you all for hanging out with us for the past 2 hours. Thank you guys for coming on, and thank you for the preview.
Yeah.
So February 11th.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah. Until then, go check out the spooky stuff on the map. Find the spooky stuff that Connor hid throughout the map.
Yeah.
All right.
Or it will find you.
Or it will find you. It's going to come to your house.
Yes.
It will.
If you don't find the creepy Coden, they will show up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have some creepy Coden to find.
Yeah.
Until then, we will see you guys in game. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Right, we'll see you next time. Parade wave.
Bye.